Apple might drop the iPhone 18 Pro later this year without a black finish again. No space black. No classic, safe option. And if the leaks are right, Apple's doing it on purpose, pushing the Pro line toward louder, more distinctive colors instead of the usual dark, stealthy look. So here's what's on the table today. Multiple reports say Apple is not planning a black iPhone 18 Pro or iPhone 18 Pro Max, continuing the same move it made with the iPhone 17 Pro lineup. We're also hearing Apple's testing a deep red Pro, plus a small set of more traditional finishes, but black isn't one of them. And we're not just talking about Apple. Google's Pixel 11 leaks suggest almost no design change. Sony's Xperia leaks suggest the opposite, a big redesign. Meanwhile, Apple might be changing the one thing people actually notice instantly in a store: color. By the end of this, you'll know what the leaks actually say, why Apple might be doing this, which colors are most likely, and what this means if you're the kind of person who only buys Pro iPhones in black. First, the core rumor. A report from Instant Digital says Apple had been considering a black option for the iPhone 18 Pro models, and that it's now been cut from the lineup. That word matters. Cut. Because it implies black wasn't just never planned. It was on the board at some point, and then Apple decided, nope, not this year. Now, this lines up with what Bloomberg's Mark Gurman has said. Apple is testing a deep red finish for the iPhone 18 Pro models, along with a small number of more traditional colors. And in those tests, black doesn't appear to be one of the final options under consideration. So we have two separate signals pointing the same direction. Apple looked at black. Apple might have removed black. And Apple's experimenting with a deep red Pro instead. Now, if you're thinking, okay, but leaks about colors are always messy, you're right. Colors are one of the easiest things for Apple to change late, and one of the easiest things for leaks to get wrong. But there's a pattern here, and the pattern started with iPhone 17 Pro, because Apple already did this once. The iPhone 17 Pro lineup launched without a traditional black option. Instead, the reported lineup was silver, titanium gray, dark blue, and desert titanium. So if you bought Pro iPhones for years because you wanted that stealthy, business-like space black, Apple basically said, pick something else. And if these iPhone 18 Pro reports are accurate, Apple is doubling down. Now let's talk about the other rumored colors, because this is where it gets confusing. There were also rumors Apple was testing purple and brown finishes for the iPhone 18 Pro lineup. Purple sounds believable because Apple has played with purple in the past on non-Pro models, and it's a popular color in the real world. Brown sounds weird, but brown in leak terms can mean anything from bronze to copper to a warm titanium tone. But Gurman has suggested those colors might not be separate colors at all. They might be variations of the same deep red concept, not totally different finishes. In other words, when some people see a warm dark red, they call it brown. When other people see a saturated warm tone, they call it purple. But Apple internally might be testing a single concept, a deep premium red that can look different under different lighting. And that makes sense, because Apple doesn't just pick a color like you're choosing a shirt. Apple picks a finish. How it reflects light. How it looks indoors versus outdoors. How it looks on camera. How it looks next to the camera bump. How it looks with cases. How it looks with fingerprints. And how it looks after months of real use. So when you hear multiple color rumors, it could be Apple testing multiple options, or it could be the internet trying to name the same finish in 5 different ways. Now here's the big question. Why would Apple refuse to offer black on the Pro line? Because black is safe. Black sells. Black matches everything. And black is the default for a lot of buyers, especially anyone upgrading for work or anyone who doesn't want attention. So if Apple drops black, it's probably because of strategy, not because they forgot it exists. Here are the most likely reasons. 1. Apple wants the Pro models to stand out instantly. If the base iPhone comes in fun colors, and the Pro comes in dark neutrals, Apple's basically telling you, fun is for the base model, serious is for the Pro. But Apple might be flipping that. They might want the Pro to look premium in a more noticeable way, not just dark rectangle. That's why we keep hearing about distinctive finishes like deep red. 2. Apple might be moving away from darker Pro identity on purpose. If a ton of people buy black Pro iPhones every year without even thinking, then Apple can't steer the look of the lineup. But if Apple removes black, it forces the market to adapt. And once people adapt, Apple can redefine what Pro looks like. 3. It could be about materials and how colors look on them. We've had titanium, we've had various coatings, and those finishes don't behave the same way as older stainless steel eras. Some shades look amazing in renders and terrible in real lighting, or they scratch and show wear in ways Apple doesn't like. Black finishes can be especially unforgiving if coatings show wear. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely the reason, but it's one of the few practical explanations that makes sense, especially if black was considered and then cut. Now let's talk about the "we need more colors" argument, because I agree with it. Apple has finally entered its cool colors era, and it's been refreshing. After years of safe, muted titanium everything, more interesting colors have been a win. But here's the part that still feels strange. Apple often limits the Pro line to only 3 or 4 colors, while the base iPhone gets more variety. And you can argue it both ways. On Apple's side, fewer colors equals simpler production, clearer marketing, less inventory complexity. On the customer side, it feels backwards. The people paying the most should have the most options, because realistically, a lot of buyers want both. They want a classic space black Pro, and they also want bold options like deep red. This doesn't have to be either or. If Apple offered space black plus a deep red plus a blue plus a silver, that would satisfy basically everyone. But Apple loves curated choice, not endless choice. So if you're a black iPhone loyalist, your situation might be this. You either buy the closest dark neutral again, like titanium gray, or you accept Apple's new direction and go for something like deep red, or you hold off and wait for Apple to bring black back in a later generation. Now, quick tangent, it's not just Apple doing same but different this year. The first leaked renders of the Pixel 11 and Pixel 11 Pro suggest Google may keep the design almost unchanged. And honestly, Google does this a lot. Refine, polish, don't rock the boat. On the other hand, Sony looks like it might be doing the opposite. Leaked renders of the Xperia 1 VII show a new camera island and a punch-hole camera, which would be a radical change compared to the previous model. So you've got 3 different strategies happening at once. Google, don't change much. Sony, change everything. Apple, design changes might be subtle, but will change the vibe through finishes and colors. And color does matter, because it's the first thing you notice. It's the fastest way to make a phone feel new even if the shape stays similar. Now, there's another major Apple storyline developing alongside all of this, the rumored iPhone Fold. Mark Gurman has called it the most significant overhaul to the iPhone yet, and potentially the first actual form factor change in iPhone history. Not thinner edges, not a new camera bump, a real fundamental change, folding hardware. The rumors point to a book-style foldable with a large inner screen, and iOS 27 is rumored to support true side-by-side multitasking for apps. And analyst Ming-Chi Kuo has thrown in a bunch of specific predictions. A 5.5-inch outer display that opens into a 7.8-inch inner screen. A hinge made from stainless steel and titanium alloy. Battery cells similar to the iPhone 17 2 rear cameras. A front camera and a Touch ID side button. That part is especially interesting because if Apple puts Touch ID on the side, it's basically admitting Face ID isn't always the perfect fit for every form factor. Now, will Apple reveal an iPhone Fold in September alongside iPhone 18 and 18 Pro? Maybe, maybe not. But if it happens, the price is going to be serious. Kuo predicts between $2,000 and $2,500. That lines up with other book-style foldables, which often cost around twice the price of standard flagships. So here's why I'm bringing the Fold up in a video about iPhone 18 Pro colors, because it tells you something about Apple's mindset. Apple might be splitting its identity into lanes. Regular iPhone, lots of color, mainstream, fun. Pro iPhone, curated premium colors that signal status and style. Fold, completely new category, completely new pricing, completely new, this is the future product. In that world, Apple may not feel the need to keep black around as the default comfort color for Pro buyers. They might want Pro buyers to choose an identity, not just choose the safe one. Now, let's get practical. If Apple really doesn't launch a black iPhone 18 Pro, what will the final lineup probably look like? Based on what we've heard, you can expect a deep red as the headline color if it survives testing. And then a small set of more traditional finishes, likely variations of silver and gray, maybe a bluish option depending on Apple's direction this year. And if purple and brown rumors were real, they might just show up as subtle shifts in that deep red finish, depending on lighting and material. Now, there's one more twist. There's also talk that Apple could change the back design approach with the iPhone 18 Pro. The iPhone 17 Pro had that more polarizing look, the two-tone rear glass and aluminum. Some people didn't mind it, some people really didn't like it. If Apple tweaks that on the iPhone 18 Pro, then the finish choices matter even more, because certain colors can either hide design lines or emphasize them. So Apple might be choosing colors that work better with the physical design. That could be another reason black gets cut, if it makes certain seams, transitions, or fingerprints more noticeable. If the leaks are right, Apple's Pro lineup is moving away from always offer black and toward offer fewer colors, but make them feel special. Now, do I love that? I love the idea of more interesting colors. I don't love removing the basic option that a huge portion of buyers want, because the best lineup would be simple. Give people space black. Give people silver. Give people one bold color like deep red. And rotate a fourth fun option year to year. That's it. Everyone wins. But Apple doesn't always build lineups to make everyone happy. Apple builds lineups to steer the market. If Apple drops black again on the iPhone 18 Pro, are you switching to a different color, or does that actually change your upgrade plan? Comment your go-to finish: black, silver, blue, or deep red. And if you want fast updates when more iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone Fold leaks hit, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll keep these reports sorted into what's likely, what's noise, and what actually matters. Right now, the signal is pretty clear. Deep red is being tested, black is reportedly off the table, and Apple seems committed to making the Pro line look more distinctive instead of more invisible. If Apple confirms this direction, the iPhone 18 Pro won't just be a spec upgrade. It'll be Apple telling you again that the default Pro iPhone isn't black anymore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.